You know, I'm not sure if I was in this much pain after biking 183 miles in just 2 days 2 years ago for this ride. My second official Bike MS is in the books. Get this, I've registered for 6 Bike MS rides, and only 2 of those have happened. The other 4 were canceled due to severe weather and COVID. Speaking of COVID, this year's Ozarks Ride was condensed from the traditional 2-day, 150-mile ride to a 1-day, 59-mile ride to help with COVID safeguards. Now, every Bike MS requires you to do fundraising. Each ride differs in the amount that is required for you to raise for that ride. The Ozarks Ride, it's required for you to raise $200. I apparently have a lot of people who either love me or love to see me suffer through the pain and pedaling through that because they donated a generous $445. And I have to say thank you in advance. I will get to each and every one of you who did donate in this video because along the ride I did shout outs to celebrate you, celebrating us and the ride. So speaking of celebrations, I also want to talk about one thing before breaking down this route. I would like to dedicate not only this video, but the entire ride to one of our cycling brothers, Dennis Lilly. Dennis had to sit out this year after a health scare weeks prior to hitting the pavement. Even though we didn't ride with you, we had the pleasant surprise of seeing you at the finish line. We're glad you're recovering now, but you were with us in spirit every mile of the way. And boy, did we need it. Now let's get down to the Bike MS 2021 Ozarks Ride. 6:01, baby. I just got out of the shower. That's why I'm looking a little wet. And we are just an hour from kicking off the 2021 Bike MS Ride. I gotta say, I woke up about 4:30, 4:40, and feeling a little drained. It's been pretty wild lately in terms of personal work, just everything. And with this being the case, I'm ready to ride. Let go. The ride started at Springfield Underground, a literal cave that houses business storage. Of course, I ended up going to the wrong entrance, the north entrance, and whenever I arrived, I was worried because I only saw 3 cars looking just as lost as I was. We parked, talked, and realized that we got to go right around the corner to the actual starting line. With about 30 minutes before pushing off, I unloaded, got my packet, and I headed underground. Sorry for the ultra shaky cam, but I was a little excited and nervous at the same time. As soon as I met up with my team, I scarfed down half of a banana bagel and drank some coffee, loaded up with some water, and it was time for some announcements. Right after getting some air in my back tire and putting on my bib with the helpful assistance of a lone cyclist that was hurrying just as fast as I was, and just like that, we were off. Pedaling uphill out of the cave to start wasn't all that bad, and comparing it to what was in store for us later, it's a breeze. Now, from this point to the second rest stop, I really didn't get much footage for 2 reasons. First, cyclists were looking for some space and we had to stay vigilant to do that deed. Now, the other reason is we passed by a lot of farmhouses and it all really looked like this. We had a great sunrise and I was making decent time out of the gate, in the exception of coming across several rollers. But I had a fun surprise about 5 miles in whenever I came across one of my favorite volunteers to spot, and that's Brian DePriest. He's always going above and beyond to ensure the safety of cyclists. I couldn't get footage this year because he was positioned at a dangerous intersection directing traffic. From this point to the second rest stop, I maintained a brisk pace, especially considering that we were at a slight decline and we had wind at our backs, which boy, oh boy, will we hate both of those things later on. What do you want to say?
Bike MS, woo!
You've noticed me saying second rest stop twice now, and there's a reason for that. We blew past the first rest stop unknowingly, but I really didn't need to stop, to be honest. I had some minor cramps and I remedied that by drinking some H2O. Once arriving in Marshfield at our second rest stop, I took a pickle juice shot to ensure my cramps were only water related, recorded some video, ate some cookies, which I couldn't tell if that was a good idea or not, then loaded up with more water, which was my first major problem. One of the new safety protocols was for volunteers to hand out plastic water bottles. That means no water coolers. So at the stop, I ended up taking, I think, 2 water bottles, filling up my own water bottles, but I have about a half of a plastic water bottle left. So I drank it. I drank that other half. I didn't think that would be a problem, but it was a big one. Because hear ye, all cyclists. Don't make the same mistake, because this extra water just settled in my stomach and I paid for it for the rest of the ride. I started feeling regretful of this choice shortly after pushing off, so I slowed down a little bit to do this.
They see me rolling, they know when. It must be Posey back to Bike MS, back to Bike MS. This is the first shout out of the ride, and this goes to Steve Stone. Thank you, Steve Stone, for your generous donations. Now, I got a hill to take on.
Next, we tackled a few tolerable hills, then chip seal. Have I mentioned how much I hate chip seal? Yeah, that slowed us down a little bit, but I recovered quickly once we hit pavement, thank goodness. And that allowed me a little more time to give another shout out.
Smooth roads. That's why we got to give a smooth shout out to my Aunt Cindy. Thank you very much for your generous donation of Bike MS. I'm going to do my best to bike as best as possible and speak with words.
Just a mile later, I got more motivation from my team, the Hertz Donut Company. Nate, pictured here, marked them to a T with phrases like, "You're only 2 miles out." I've got to say, it fueled me to pedal faster and harder to make it to the turnaround point. Hertz Donuts supplied the third rest stop with snow cones, music, and a healthy dose of encouragement. In the moment, I had no clue how much I needed this to get me back home. Another uplifting side note, I paced about 16.3 miles per hour average moving speed on the way there, and that soon tanked because on the ride out of that third rest stop, it was downhill, but that quickly turned around once we started battling those hills. It became an uphill battle for sure. My teammates Kedge Lilly and Mike Olwig and I were able to pace together for the most part, and that helped fuel us more than we knew because we faced 2 of the worst hills back to back. Literally 2 of the worst hills I've ever biked up. And it's the first time we all actually thought about getting off our bikes and walking up the hills. But we stayed strong, we pedaled down, and refused to take that walk of shame. We made it, but with that being the case, our mental, at least my mental and physical endurance, slowly started to get chipped away because guess what? We got chip seal again. Coupled with a gradual incline, I had to drop that puppy into a low gear. At least the promise of recovery at the next rest stop got me through. Barely. I downed 2 pickle juice packets and stretched my legs while standing under an American flag hoisted above because this wasn't just any Saturday, but Saturday, September 11th. I reflected on what made 9/11 personal for me. That day, 20 years ago, happened shortly after my grandmother's death. And I thought, let's honor everyone who's inspired me and encouraged me. Let's crush this ride. I looked at the wind whipping the flag southwest, realized we had about 20 miles left of this horrid headwind. So I saddled up, and needless to say, I didn't crush the rest of this ride. Hey, at least I was able to pace closely with Kez and Mike again.
We got Kez and Olvig right behind me, trying to keep up the motivation. There you go.
We crossed over Interstate 44 and ran parallel to arguably Missouri's busiest road for several miles. The difficult part here was the inability to gain much speed because of 1, the gradual incline, and 2, Mother Nature's literal blowback. So once Mike ended up passing me, I had to reach for some more personal motivation.
We're on that lone stretch next to 44 and I am zapped. My legs are killing me. I drank too much water, so I need some motivation. That's why I'm doing another shout out to my soul sister, Cindy B. I was gonna say Soul Sister Cyclist, and I just messed that up. But it doesn't matter because this shout out did not get messed up, because anytime a shout out goes out to you, Cindy, it's beautiful.
Just 2 miles down the road, we caught another break with the final rest stop at Wild Animal Safari, a drive-through zoo which I wish I had more time to check out. I immediately hopped off the bike, stretched my legs, and lied in the grass because my legs were howling. I ended up taking a few seconds to enjoy the fact that I was at the watering hole stop. I met volunteers or some new friends who I discovered we share a mutual friend. We swapped stories, and this pleasant surprise gave me a final extra boost needed. I jumped back on the bike and had a little more to say as I began this final journey home.
Leaving the final rest stop, heading home. 11 miles to go, and this shout out goes out to Dustin Pruitt, DP. You've always been supportive, and you got me into this. Thanks a lot, buddy.
I kicked into what I like to call cruise mode. That's just basically saying, let's try to enjoy this, if possible. I came across one other cyclist who I passed, and then another cyclist had passed me on the way back. But other than that, I was riding solo, which is a good time for self-reflection, which led me to this final shout out.
We're in the home stretch. I'm in pain, a lot of pain. This has been tough. But for someone to always be there for me whenever things get tough, to say, no matter how crazy the idea is, we got you. And that's my parents. Mom, Dad, thank you not only for donating, but for supporting me. I'll always love you. Now, let me finish this 1.5 miles and then we're home.
I went into Fast and Furious tunnel vision mode, focusing on certain things, mainly just getting there alive, because I started recognizing more and more landmarks, which means the finish line was oh so close. But I remembered I had one final hill and it wasn't really all that bad, and of course train tracks. Oh, the train tracks. If you remember the video from last year, or 2 years ago, that stopped us in our tracks for a few minutes, but not this time.
Not this year, Joe. Not this year.
It was all downhill from there, thank goodness. I cruised past rallying supporters and nearly cried tears of joy rolling up to the finish line. Probably not the best idea, but I biked into the cave once more to celebrate lunch with my teammates. I was zapped. Quite frankly, I didn't shoot much video from this point forward because I really just wanted to enjoy this accomplishment of finishing my second Bike MS with my teammates, the ones who I consider to be close friends, because we've been through a lot, especially this grueling ride. We ride together, we raise money and awareness together, and we celebrate victories together. And weirdly enough, that's kind of like a slogan for life right now. To conclude, I just want to say a few thank yous. Thank you for supporting me and other cyclists. Thank you for donating. And if you didn't donate, thanks for following this journey. Thank you to my teammates for allowing me to be a part of such a great little cycling family. I love all of you, and I can't wait to hit the pavement with you again soon. And speaking of hitting the pavement, I can't wait to be with Tim and Cass, our team leaders. Thank you for bringing me on this team and making this special. Not just this team, but also the rides and all of our meetups. Thank you to all of you who are watching this and are curious about biking. I will encourage you, if you're interested in Bike MS or just any rides, just do it. Just get out there and start pedaling. That's what I did, and this is where I am today. I'm thankful for those who encouraged me to get involved, including you, DP, especially you, DP. If you're here just to watch this video, thank you, seriously, because filmmaking and video producing, it's my passion. So marrying that with cycling, it's a match made in heaven, at least for me. So there are other biking videos that I do have. Check those out right now. But I got to say one last thing. Until the next ride brings us together, keep pedaling.